So the question was there anything about Lubbock or West Texas or Texas Tech that particularly shaped, their career, their legal education that they think was special? Who wants to?
I'll go with this one. This school was actually the only school I applied to. I did early admission in whenever the application comes out, September, August maybe. And part of the reason I did that is because my brother had, he's older by 4 years, he had graduated from this law school in 2005. And so during his time here, I had made the trip up here many times for, be it football games, basketball games, graduation, whatever. And during that time, I fell in love with Lubbock. I mean, it really, I don't know who's from here. I mean, it sounds like we're from all over in this room right now. And Lubbock, it's not the prettiest place on the planet, but I mean, let's be honest, it's not. But the people here are the best in the state. I mean, and that's law school, tech, and the bar association here. I mean, it's just, you can't beat the people here. And, when you get out of law school and you go into practice, I have friends that practice in, Dallas, Austin, Houston, doing the big firm thing. And, the way other lawyers treat other lawyers in those cities is just so different from the way that people in Lubbock treat other lawyers. I mean, it really, and it's really hard to explain and put to words, but the people here are just fantastic. And that to me was what sucked me in and got me here. And I'm here to this day, and I plan on being here probably for the rest of my life. So, I mean, to me, West Texas was huge. It was a huge factor in my decision.
And I think in what helps shape the way we practice law, believe it or not, I think exactly what you just said, it's so true. It's to the point where older lawyers mentor younger lawyers purposely. If a lawyer is getting into little trouble, a judge, for example, this area, will say, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a choice. Either we do it the hard way, or I want you to call this lawyer, and I want him to be your mentor for a period of time. And lawyers volunteer. Older lawyers helping younger lawyers so that we can keep the type of law that we practice, keep it to the highest standards in this area. And it's a phenomenal, phenomenal place.
And let me jump in also, since I live in the big city and I do get to see, let me back up. You're going to come out of law school, you're going to practice more likely than not civil law, but some of you will become criminal law practitioners. Now, in the criminal law arena, generally speaking, people still treat each other well, even across the aisle. That is to say, prosecutors and defense attorneys. By and large, a handshake works and telephone call. You can't say the same about civil lawyers, I'm afraid, in the larger cities. It is really, one can see really tacky behavior, all right? What I think, to go to your specific inquiry, your question, you come out of an area like this where people still treat strangers well, all right? I personally think, just as an aside, how we treat each other when we know each other isn't much of a metric. I mean, why would we diss each other? But how do you treat strangers? And I would put West Texas, and I am a native Texan, I would put West Texas ahead of any other area of the state for how people treat strangers. You take that with you, that attitude. You learn it, or you experience it here, and you'll take it with you. And I think it has a civilizing effect, if you will. I think that in the larger cities where I've been and seen some of the practices I've described, the tackiness, I think sometimes people can learn you can still practice law civilly, in civilized fashion, and maybe they can take something from the way you behave.
The one piece of advice you wish you had gotten before you came to law school? That's a good question. That's deep. You got to think about that for a while. That's a big one.
I think it would be to buy the panel that was talking to us then to buy them dinner.
Exactly. I came before Jerry, and that's exactly what they said to me, too.
I'll go with that one. I had always, well, all of you are successful people. You wouldn't be sitting here if you weren't. I perceived myself as being successful. I had flown for a few years in the Air Force and done well and traded that to come here. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't necessarily do well. And by way of confession, my first semester was not a good semester, and it was the ego was very bruised. My advice would be to understand that when you come here, look around, because the fact of the matter is you are all doing something correctly, or you wouldn't be sitting here. And so I'm not suggesting that you become so fiercely competitive that you are no longer a decent person. What I'm suggesting is that understand that when you come in, that you're with other competent people, and get used to that fact. Don't worry about, just do the best you can. Don't worry about if you see someone else and they sound so incredibly intelligent, and you, on the other hand, is like, I don't know if I understand it.
Yeah.
Do what you can. You'll pick it up. Some people start learning, they pick up concepts quicker than others. Everyone pretty well ends up at the same place. Stay secure in yourself.
The husband of believe it or not, my 5th grade teacher, typical West Texas name, Buck, asked me to go to his house. Found out I was going to come to the law school here. And I'll never forget this. Something I mentioned earlier, and it stayed with me, it's still today. He said, you're going to go to law school, and he had such faith in me. He says, you're going to pass everything, you're going to be fine. And I'm telling you, you'll be okay at this law school. Just do your work, you're going to be fine. All the work. And it's not easy, but you'll get it done. And he said, once you finish, I want you to remember that people will come into your office, you'll fill out some paperwork, it'll go inside of a file. He says, I hope you don't leave those people inside that file. Because every file represents a human being. And you take care of human beings, not files. You know what? That has stayed with me forever. It makes you I think it makes you a better lawyer, a more caring lawyer.
Well, for me, I guess that the best thing that I was told, I'll put it this way, the best thing I took from law school that, I don't know if I was told this before I started or not, but the relationships with your classmates are something that will stay with you for the rest of your lives. And that's not really a fair statement for me because I'm only 3 years out of law school. But my best friends in my life right now are my law school classmates. And, some of those came from my very first section, my very first day of school. And to develop those relationships early on, that was a wonderful thing for me in school because sometimes you just don't get it. It's there'll be days when you're just frustrated, and to have somebody there that can maybe walk you through it and explain it to you, and you help them out 2 weeks later or something on something else. That to me was huge. To me was to develop a kind of a group of friends that I could rely on and trust, and you can be competitive with them, sure, but ultimately they're going to be your colleagues someday, so you want to carry that through. And also, just on a more practical note, I would say get on the parking list as soon as you can. Just thought.
I remember at our 1L orientation luncheon, our former dean, Walter Huffman, told us, whatever you do, just keep reading. And so when you read that first case, I think Tracy and our first class was torts, and you read this case and you think, I have no idea what this says. And I was coming in with a master's degree and obviously, respectable numbers, and I thought, I'm reading these 20 pages over and over again, and I have no idea what this case means. And so I just remember Dean Huffman's advice, which is just keep reading, and at some point it clicks in. And I think it does. At some point during the semester, you say, oh, that's what that's about. Hopefully it's before finals.
Don't worry.
And if it's not, at some point you get it
Before the bar
semester.
exam.
Yes, definitely before the bar exam. And then I would agree with Tracy as well. One thing that I've done when I've been in practice and now back here as the assistant director in admissions is you're always connected to your law school. It's not like your undergraduate where you may stay in touch with a professor or two, or maybe a small group of friends, or from a fraternity or sorority, a few of your brothers or sisters. You're always going to be connected to your law school. So last summer I was practicing with a nonprofit and going to a continuing legal education class, a CLE, a litigation boot camp for 4 days. And knowing that I needed to get prepared for this, we had some homework assignments. It was going to be interactive. The first thing I did is email one of my professors here, who I had not seen in about a year and a half since I graduated, and said, do you have a couple of hours Tuesday afternoon to help me get prepared for this litigation boot camp that I'm going to? And so he was right there gathering materials, suggesting certain things that I read to prepare for it. And so when I went, I was much more prepared. And talking with some of the other nonprofit attorneys who were there, they said, well, it looks like you spent a lot of time, done a lot of this homework. And I said, well, actually what I did is call one of my former professors, and he helped me get prepared for this. And it was just an amazing experience to think that you're always connected to your law school. And that's what I found is your classmates, you will see them again at legal workshops, and you will always be connected to your law school.
Saw a hand over here. Yep.
I think Jerry wanted to add something.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's fine for all these relationships, but not all of you are going to have relationships with my little girl, okay? So, big R and little R relationships.
Now would
all
not
right?
be the time to point out that I married one of my classmates.
The question was, what was the biggest influence for you in picking a practice area?
My family, many years ago, my mom and dad, born in Mexico, brothers and sisters in Mexico, couldn't speak English. And they did labor work. And I was a little guy, and oftentimes they would do work, and they would get cheated. And I thought, that's just wrong. I'd say, Dad, why can't we do something about this? He says, well, it takes money. You have to hire somebody called a lawyer. I said, well, let's go get one. They cost a lot of money, and they didn't pay us, so how are we going to do that? So I decided that was wrong, and I wanted to go do something about it. It influenced me.
I do business and commercial work, a little bit of Section 1983 defense work, but primarily business and commercial stuff.
That's my favorite section, 1983.
It's fun.
Yeah, you're like
It's a good area. It's interesting facts and patterns. But I went that way because I was an accounting finance major in undergrad. So, I mean, I knew from, being in college that, I enjoyed business stuff. I mean, that's just what I liked. And so, I got to law school, and you take the first year required courses, and you start working your way through the con laws, or what else do you have to take? I don't even know the bar review courses, whatever you take after that. And then you get to your electives. And so I went with the, the bankruptcy, the business related stuff, and I just liked it. It's just my personal, it's just what I was drawn to. So
I'm like Jerry. I went through that, but there was something about going inside of a courtroom and being able to, there's a bar there, and the judge sits up here, and being able to walk into the court's well and feel like you're a gladiator.
slightly different wardrobe.
In your mind.
Yeah, you don't look, well, and looking over at the other attorney and saying, I'm going to beat his butt because he's wearing a Daffy Duck tie. The jury will hate him. And it really happened to me once, and there's just something about talking to a jury. And when you're talking to them and you get to a point that you're so confident because of how you've been trained, that you even test them when you're talking to them. When you're talking to a jury and you shake your head yes when you're saying something and they're going yes, and in the middle of it you shake no and they go no. There's just something about that. It's just I don't know. It's awesome. It's just a thrill. And that influenced me. I mean, that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Let me mention something that happened in my life, and I'll give unsolicited advice to all of you. I mentioned this at the table at lunch earlier to some people. I would have probably continued my meandering about doing corporate transactional work, but during my second or third year, some friends of mine were looking for a third person to join their moot court team. And so I think they asked me because I was a warm body. It's like, okay, and I had some type of presence, but I don't think that they were thinking a whole lot about me snagging much of the time. A moot court competition is where you are paired up and you are arguing one side of a case to a panel of 3 judges. Okay, it is appellate advocacy. So I went ahead and said I would do it, and then went in, and to be perfectly candid, I did much better than my teammates. They were surprised. I was surprised. I was happier about the surprise than they were. But what came out of it, and the advice I'd like to give you, I would never have done the competition. I was one of those people that I had this plan in my mind, and by God, that's the way we were going to do it. And I was not someone who was disposed to trying new things. We were talking at lunch, maybe that's birth order. I was the firstborn child, and maybe I was too afraid of displeasing my parents by failing. I have no idea. Maybe just a screwed up personality. Who knows? But the point being, what I would suggest to all of you in terms of influences and what area, try as many different things as you can. Try the mock trial competitions. Try the moot court. Try negotiations. Try arbitration. Look at what the different journals are. Expose yourself to some things that are different and perhaps far away from what where you saw yourself when you first walked through the doors. That would be the advice I would give you. You know.
Right. So how easy do you think it was for your classmates to find those big city jobs with all those mean lawyers?
I mean, I can share my experience, which is I had a job opportunity in every major city except for Lubbock. It was harder for me to find a job actually in the Lubbock community. So Huntsville, Dallas, Fort Worth, Midland, Austin. And I was looking for something very specific. I went to law school with the intention of doing public interest work. I had been writing a nationally syndicated column on Texas politics and public policy and found that I was writing about things but wasn't really able to affect change in those areas. And so I wanted to go to law school to be able to affect change and wanted to do public interest work. And actually, back to this lady's question earlier, found it sort of out of practicality, took a job with a small to medium-sized firm near Midland doing oil and gas litigation, just as a practical matter, but told them on the front end I wanted to continue to look for something in public interest work and stayed with them for about 8 months until I found a public interest job. So actually for me, my own experience, it wasn't difficult at all to find. I don't consider us being displaced, I guess, in West Texas.
Yeah, when it comes to the legal market, I mean, most of you have seen, if you haven't picked it up already, our catalog, you know, pretty pictures, big smiling face on the front. Not my face. They wouldn't put my face on it. It was a great photo.
Last two lawyers I hired, believe it or not, Laura, the last one I hired, had job offers in Dallas and Houston and in East Texas. Chose Lubbock.
Right. Well, that's what I was getting at. The job stats are the top market is Dallas, Fort Worth for our grads. And then after that, it's Austin, and then Houston, and then you get to Amarillo and West Texas. So the majority of our graduates do end up in the major legal market. So internships and clinics. I can answer the clinics. We've got clinics here. So when you're third year, you can you have your own clients. You'll see them. It's actually right over here in this building. I think we've got, how many? Like 5, 6, I think now, clinics, all ranging from sort of civil to criminal, family law, a lot of different things, tax. So that's definitely an opportunity. And then as far as internships, it depends. So there's summer internships. Most students don't stay in Lubbock for the summers. They go back to wherever it is that they want to get a job, usually Houston, Dallas, home, and they find internships there. Stuff for like here is usually either during the semester or something like that. So it kind of just depends on what you're looking for.
Stephen, can I add to that? And maybe Judge Medina would like to have a final comment as well. My experience was because we're the only law school in Texas, and the law school is very connected. The Lubbock legal community is very connected with the law school. So you will find that we are constantly having events for the Lubbock community here. You have mentors like Judge Medina who are on campus. And so my experience was it was easier to find internships here and to make those professional connections here than it would have been maybe in a larger environment in Dallas or in Houston because how connected the Lubbock County Bar Association is to the law school.
And other than just internships, for example, as a third-year law student, right now there's 2 third-year law students in my office that we encourage them to get third-year bar cards. And what we do is we have one of our attorneys sit with them in a trial. They do the trial.
You may want to tell them what that is.
Yeah. In your third year of law school, you can apply to the state bar to give you, if you will, a temporary license.
Limited license. Right?
Yeah. And it's very limited. An attorney that sponsors you has to be with you all the time. Not all the time, I mean, but you know what I mean.
We're going to Jimmy's.
In the courtroom.
Carefully, you know.
In the courtroom. Yeah, watch who you choose. But you see, they actually prepare the case, they do the pretrial with the help of the attorney, and then they go present the case in court. I tell you, that's pretty good. Are they practice ready? When they leave, they know what to do.
And I think, too, the interesting thing is usually most people equate like big city with opportunity, but sometimes you got to remember some place like Houston, there's 3 law schools in Houston, so there's more opportunity, but there's a lot more law students competing for those jobs, too. Whereas out here, I mean, all of West Texas, El Paso, that's us, so that's a good thing. So that's our time. Big hand for the panel.